What is good? I've got another list of cards to do. I've also got this delicious looking chico. Oh my god. Your boy's been doing keto, just to give you a little update. My blood pressure's down like 10 points over the last week. I went from 252 to 244 in a week. So if you've been thinking about it, maybe go for it. That's beyond the point. I got some cool cards. I got another list of cards that you've never seen before. Yes, I'm talking to you, the guy that is like, I've seen every Magic card. I've looked at every Magic card. All I do is look at Magic cards. I have cards that even you have never seen. So starting things off, we've got a suggestion from over on Patreon from our boy Aaron Allard, who recommends Strict Proctor. Strict Proctor is 1 and a white for a 1/3 flying. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. Yeah, pretty annoying. It's in 8,319 decks, which is, you know, right on the cusp of being 10K, so I love suggestions like this. Aaron says, it slows down games a bit, especially those blink decks like Amanatu. I have it in my Quintarius deck because it's also a spirit, so if I need to, I can sack it to its ability and bring back a potential curse onto the field. It's obviously a pretty good like pickup for like a budget stacks deck if you want to, if you're more of a control-y build. Maybe if your deck has absolutely no ETBs, you just throw it in to be like, cool card, thanks Aaron. I didn't put it on here, that's why I'm confused. Strict Proctor's 60 cents. Coming in next, we've got Firmament Sage and 526 decks coming in at 1 cent, and I kind of need to explain this one a little bit. Firmament Sage is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 human wizard. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Firmament Sage enters the battlefield. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, draw a card. So, if you're in like a hyper budget build, maybe you're doing like a challenge, maybe you're just in a hyper budget, you know what I mean? That's fine too. I think Firmament Sage is a pretty good card draw engine. For day to become night, you have to cast 2 spells on the same turn. For night to become day, you have to cast 0 spells. And it might be flipped. I might have flipped those two. Either way, whenever someone doesn't cast a spell on a turn, you get to draw a card. And then when it's the other way, if someone casts 2 spells, you get to draw a card. I feel like this thing will just draw you a pretty good amount of cards just by sitting in play. And this is for the budget viewers. These are for the people that are like, hey, I'm on a strict budget. It's a cent. It'll provide some pretty good card draw for you over the course of the game. I could almost see this in something like the Parnassi, or Parnace, I guess some of you guys said it was pronounced, group plug deck we did. Because you're kind of manipulating when day becomes night. You can be like, hey, would you mind not casting anything? Or, hey, would you mind casting 2 spells so that I can get a card draw, so that I can do this for you? You know what I mean? You can get kind of political with it. I think it's a cool card. I think for a cent, if you're on a budget, you need a card draw piece. It's fine. Pandemonium, however, is better than fine. It's in 5,130 decks, and it comes in at $1.22. Pandemonium is 3 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever any creature comes into play, that creature's controller may choose to have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player. That has been retconned to say any target, so if you're running battles, this is kind of cool. If you're running Warstorm Surge, you might as well run this. If you're in Group Slug, like we talked about in my last video, how to speed up games of Commander, this is a great card on how to speed up the game. It pretty much just makes everything deal tons of damage. All the creatures deal tons of damage. If you're in a token deck, all your tokens are pinging. Goblin deck, there's a ton of different stuff. Obviously, all the decks that Warstorm Surge is good in, this is pretty good in. And if you're trying to accelerate games, I think this is a great pickup. Brandywine Farmer comes in next with 3,783 decks coming in at 3 cents. Brandywine Farmer is 2 and a green for a 1/1 halfling peasant. When Brandywine Farmer enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, create a food token. Again, this is for my budget boys, you know what I mean? This is a pretty good blink target. You're getting 2 foods every time you blink this thing. If you're in the right deck, those 2 foods could definitely be used. If you're in like a Rune of the Hidden Realm, a Chu Lane deck where you can blink this thing every turn, I think it's really good. I think something that people will miss out on a lot of the time when they're building commander decks is to throw in some stuff that uses your deck strategy in the early game. I think like a lot of my decks I found were missing some early game pieces that utilize my strategy. I threw them in. It works way better. So if you're in a blink deck, maybe check and see if you have some 2 and 3 drop blink targets. And if you don't, maybe throw in a Brandywine Farmer. I think it's pretty decent, especially if you've got like the life gain token sub theme going on. Homicide Investigator is one that I'm genuinely shocked I haven't talked about yet. And also it's in 2,269 decks, which is nuts. It comes in at 49 cents. It's 1 and a black for a 2/2 human detective. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability only triggers once each turn. So, Morbid Opportunist, a better card. This comes out cheaper. It also gives you tokens. It also puts an artifact on the board in the form of a clue, gives you a token in the form of a clue, and gives you card draw. So I think in certain decks, this one can be better than Morbid. Like if you're in Corvold, Fakehurst, or like Eloise, the Navalia Sleuth, those both seem fantastic for this card because where Morbid Opportunist just draws you a card, this can also tap into your deck's usage of tokens as well as card draw, which is awesome. But all the decks you're running Morbid Opportunist outside of a token list, I think this card slots into those same decks. I've always got one of them. I've always got one card I like way more than all the other cards on these lists, and this is my favorite one of this list. Loamcrafter Fawn is insane, and I really suggest you pick one up immediately. It's in 4,580 decks, and it comes in at 10 cents. Loamcrafter Fawn is 2 and a green for a 3/3 Satyr Druid. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard 1 or more land cards. When you do, return up to that many target non-land permanents from your graveyard to your hand. This is going into Neb immediately, because imagine this. You Disciple a Bolus, crack a big thing to reanimate, you're drawing 8+ cards, gaining 8+ life. You drop a Loamcraft Shaman, and you go, yeah, I just drew all this, and it's got 5 lands in it. Ditch those. Get back all these other reanimation pieces. I can get back Animate Deads, Dance of the Deads with this, Sun Titans, Karmic Guides. It's disgusting. I think a lot of people are like, this goes in a Lands Matter deck. I genuinely think if you've got good card draw in your deck, or if you consistently have a pretty full hand, I think this card's good. Especially in Reanimator or like Blink, because early game doesn't matter. It's a 3/3, it's a Satyr. It's 3 for a 3/3. Awesome. You can still use it late game by reanimating and blinking it. So in those decks, it's extra good. But I still think just ditching lands out of your hand to get back more pieces you need late game, late game, very good card. I highly suggest picking one of these up. This next one might be the card where you're like, that's really good, and I've never seen it. Nature's Resurgence is in 770 decks and comes in at 24 cents. It's 2 and 2 green for a sorcery. Each player draws as many cards as there are creatures in his or her graveyard. I don't know, like if I have a Dauthi Voidwalker in play since like turn 2, or I run like a Bajuka Bog, or you know, any other countless number of things that can exile opponents' graveyards, and then play this, it's definitely an upgrade from Harmonize. You're going to be paying 4 mana to draw way more than 3 cards. Not a lot to say here. I think this is pretty good. Obviously in the right deck. If you're like, I don't run any creatures, then don't run the card. But if you run creatures, I like that card a lot. I am considering it for Teneb, possibly. Fraying Line is another one that is very hyper specific, but I thought I'd talk about it because it is a cool card, and you guys always come up with like alternate cool ways for me to use some of the stuff we talk about on these lists. Fraying Line is in 3,657 decks, and it comes in at 6 cents. It is 4 colorless for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may pay 2. If they do, they put a rope counter on target creature they control. Otherwise, exile Fraying Line and each creature without a rope counter on it. Then remove all rope counters from all creatures. Fraying Line, very good in Falco, gives me guaranteed counters, or I can use it as a board wipe card, which is really good. I also really like it in the Pulverizer deck. No, that doesn't sound right. Parry the Pulverizer! As that deck also cares about counters, and you can use this in kind of a multifaceted way again. Again, I don't really have a lot to say about it because it's a weird card. I wanted to talk about it. I thought maybe some of you guys would be able to come up with some good uses of it. There's the card. So Nightclubber is our next one, and I really like it. It's in 3,255 decks, coming in at 5 cents. Nightclubber is 1 and 2 black for a 2/2 human warrior. When Nightclubber enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, and it has Blitz for 2 and a black. See ya, Viscera Seers. Bye-bye, birds. Have a good one, Esper Sentinels. Those are all gone. Not to even mention 1/1 tokens that are in play, which tons of stuff make. You can also blitz it to just draw a card if it's not that useful this game. You can get it back with Sun Titan, reuse it in your Reanimator decks. I think this is really, really good. I think this is a good tool piece to just have in a deck like that. It's like, hey, if there's a token deck at the table, if there's all these 1 toughness things, like utility creatures that are just providing all this value really early on, I can drop this 3-drop, take all those off the table, and then have a repeatable effect of that if it ever goes to grave. I really like this thing. I'm going to be picking it up for Teneb and trying it out, so expect that on the next Teneb update. Mortuary is one that also kind of shocked me that it's only in 3,022 decks. It comes in at $4.81, so it's the most expensive one on the list. Mortuary is 3 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, put that creature on top of your library. So I can see where this becomes like a card where you're almost scared of it because you're like, I don't want the opponents to just kill my bad creature over and over, and then I'm just drawing the bad creature over and over and over again. Totally get it. I think this is really good as a combo piece though, and it's really easy to set up. How it works is you have Mortuary in play. You play Gyruda, which will mill each player for 4, and then return a creature milled this way into play. This will return a clone if you hit it, and copy Gyruda, also causing the legend rule to go on the stack. We sacrifice the clone of Gyruda, causing Mortuary to trigger and put the clone back on top. Now our clone Gyruda's ability goes off, milling everyone for 4, and rinse and repeat. It's a little confusing. but that's how it works. You mill everybody out on the table with this, Gyruda, and a clone. Also just a neat card. I'm not sure how good it is, honestly, just in a bubble by itself. That combo's really cool. I'm sure there's some decks where you could like figure out a way to get like a loop going with Mortuary. Again, a card I wanted to throw out there because you guys are deck fanatics like me, so this seems like a card that could spark some ideas. I got kind of a weird one. This might be the first vehicle on these lists. If it's not, it's definitely the first white vehicle on these lists. The Pridewind Steel flagship is in 5,453 decks, and it comes in at 49 cents. It's 4 and 2 white for a 6/6 legendary vehicle with flying. Whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white human knight creature token with this creature gets +2/+2 as long as an artifact entered under your control this turn. And it has crew 2. This is very good. If you're in the right deck, this is kind of nuts. Your Wayfarer's Baubles turn into 2/2s, your Soul Rings turn into 2/2s, all your Mana Rocks turn into 2/2s, every artifact you're playing turns into 2/2s, and then those 2/2s are able to crew this giant ship. Even just making this amount of 2/2s in the right deck could be a win con. Also, those 2/2s just turn into 4/4s, because if you're in the deck that's able to use this ability to its fullest extent, you're probably going to have an artifact entering each turn. So this thing's essentially spitting out 4/4s. One of my favorite types of cards are cards that can be useful engines in the mid game and can make maybe not so useful parts of your deck useful late game. So what I mean is like Mana Rocks late game and mid game to some extent aren't nearly as useful as they are early game. But if you run a card like this, your late game Mana Rocks now become 2/2/4/4 knights. So being able to turn some of the bad aspects of late game into good aspects with like a single card like this, I think is something to try out for sure. Listen, I'm not like a toot my own horn kind of guy. This list is a banger. Every card I go to is just a banger. Mist Breath Elder is in 3,707 decks, comes in at 47 cents. It's 1 green for a 2/2 Frog Warrior. At the beginning of your upkeep, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on Mist Breath Elder. Otherwise, you may return Mist Breath Elder to its owner's hand. This dude's awesome. He's going immediately into Falco because, so what I've started doing with my decks, kind of like a side note here. I've started including cards that can like interact with other cards in my deck to produce very big value gains for me. So for instance, I've put Shrieking Drake into my Falco deck because I run Guardian Project in there, and just those two out together are insane. And Shrieking Drake being able to bounce back my Falco so I can replay it and get a shield counter, also not bad. This is the exact same thing. This is also going to be going into Falco for almost the identical reason. It's 1 for a 2/2 that can either reset Falco or can bounce itself and activate my Guardian Projects again. Not to even mention that this guy puts 1/1 counters on himself, which I didn't even think of because Falco Sparrow cares about 1/1 counters as well. This guy's definitely going in there. You guys are genius. This next one is solely because of you guys. That is why it's on this list. I didn't understand why this card was good. You guys explained it to me on a live stream. Insane. Reality Acid is in 9,314 decks. It comes in at 6 cents. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant permanent. Vanishing 3. When Reality Acid leaves the battlefield, enchant permanent controller sacrifices it. So you read it and you go, okay, after the 3 vanishing counters are gone, it goes away, it kills the thing it's on. Really slow, expensive removal. I'm sorry, I don't notice things very quickly. Blink deck, obviously. If this isn't a blink deck, it's just destroy permanents. Because you just blink it, it leaves battlefield, kills the thing it's on, enters battlefield, reattaches to something else. Blink it, blink it, blink it. Knock my hat off. Lands, enchantments, battles, creatures, artifacts, planeswalkers. This one's just under the 10K deck mark. I probably would imagine it's even over it after this video because this is a very good card. Speaking of insanely good cards, I thought I'd save this one for the end. So, you know, I figured I'd save a card that we all could use pretty much for the end. Insane. Smoke Bomb from the Assassin's Creed set is ran in 7,557 decks, and it comes in at 42 cents. Smoke Bomb is 3 colorless for an artifact with flash. All creatures have Shroud. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Smoke Bomb. When you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Yeah, Teneb. I don't even have to really go into that too much. Protects Teneb, gives Teneb unblockable during my next turn. Definitely. And I'm sure there's a ton of commanders that fit that exact same mold that you run. Protecting it and then making it unblockable. If you're in a Voltron list, gross. And pretty much any deck you need to protect your creatures, this is a fantastic option for that deck. Not to even mention like artifact decks who love to run recursion to reuse artifacts like Emery Lurker of the Lock. You're reusing Smoke Bomb every turn. You could do like an Emery Voltron deck where Smoke Bomb becomes like disgusting in that list. I'm honestly not a huge Assassin's Creed fan, which is why I didn't really look at the set too much. Didn't see a lot of the stuff. I decided to take a look. This is nuts. Definitely pick one of these up. 7,557 decks. I don't think it's going to stay at that number for long. Also 42 cents, under $1. I really like all these. I think we covered a good wide array of budgets, different strategies, different card types that I guarantee you have never seen one of. I'm just kidding. But if you haven't seen any of them, let me know. If you have seen them, sure, let me know. You got any more card suggestions, uses for any of these cards, drop them down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe. We're trying to hit 10K by the end of the year. I still think we're on track to do that very easily. If you want to show a little bit of additional support, you can head over to Patreon. It starts as low as $1. You can see all of our patrons right now above my blurry face on the screen. So thank you to all you guys. You guys help support the channel a ton. And with that, I'm going to go look through Scryfall some more and no life the hell out of this. So have a good one. Go play Magic. Peace.